Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Integrator Catalyst webinar. I'm Clayton Stanton, the founder of the Integrator Catalyst. Today's topic is the intangibles to becoming a world-class integrator. Before we get into today's content, I want to explain why I do what I do. My mission is to help visionary business owners develop healthy and strong companies through developing healthy and strong visionary integrator duo relationships. If you've never heard of the terms visionary and integrator, I'll give you a quick rundown of what they are. To give credit where credit is due, these terms come from the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS. This system is explained in the book Traction by Gino Wickman, and the Visionary Integrator Duo is explained more thoroughly in the book Rocket Fuel by Mark C. Winters. In EOS, they recommend that you have two people at the top of an organization, the visionary and the integrator. They couldn't be any more different. The visionary is often, but not always, the founder of the company. They're passionate and emotional. They love making the big sale, managing big relationships, and solving big problems. People love to follow them because of their passion and their vision. The integrator is the opposite. They're typically very logical and process-minded. They love managing people, solving small problems, and the day-to-day management of a business. When these two people can get aligned and unified, they're a powerful force that can take a business to the next level. So what I do is I help visionary business owners to develop that integrator that has that complementary skill set, and I also help the two of them to learn how to communicate and stay on the same page. This is often a challenge as the two people are very different from one another. So I am an integrator, and I've worked with a visionary for 14 years now. I'm on my third one, and I've learned a lot. I've definitely seen it all. I've seen how rough it can be, and I've seen how incredible it can be. As mentioned, today's topic is the intangibles to becoming a world-class integrator. I mentioned a couple of books previously that are great, and what I did in preparing for this webinar is to try to identify some things that are not talked about in the books that you'll read on this topic. That's why I call them the intangibles. I want you to know that these intangibles that I've identified are not all inclusive. I've identified 7 of them. And if you come up with more, I'd love to hear your feedback as part of the Q&A portion of today. So take some notes, be prepared to ask questions or add to the conversation about other intangibles as well, whether it's in the webinar today or on YouTube afterwards. All right, so let's get into it. The first intangible that I think is crucial to becoming a world-class integrator is to be a servant. I believe as a leader, you need to first and foremost serve your team and your visionary. Now, some leaders, some integrators, they just want to be served. They just want to tell everyone what to do and have them do it. I think maybe 20, 30 years ago, this approach worked, but it doesn't anymore. You have to serve your people. You have to be willing to do the dirty work when required, and you have to see your primary role as empowering others. I believe that a big percentage of an integrator's job is serving others. Here are some examples of how you can serve others. First one, ask questions to determine roadblocks that are holding your team back, and then work to remove them. You can serve them by removing the things that are holding them back. Second thing, ask questions to determine systemic problems and work collaboratively to fix them. Often in companies, there's systems and process problems that really need somebody to kind of remove themselves from the situation, look at it objectively, and make some changes to fix the problem. The third one, ask questions to determine the limiting beliefs of your team members and help them to reframe or replace them. I think we all have limiting beliefs within ourselves. And as an integrator, we have a unique opportunity to listen and ask questions and challenge people to get to the next level. So these are a few examples, and I'm sure there are more examples, but the biggest thing that you want to understand is that when you serve your people, you're helping them to succeed. And when they succeed, you succeed. All right, the second tangible is to be a good listener. The reality is you can't be a servant leader if you aren't a good listener. You will notice in the first point that I talked a lot about asking questions. And if you ask questions, you better be prepared to listen to the answers. So you should definitely listen more than you speak. One of my clients recently had a situation that illustrated this really well. It was coming up to his quarterly meeting, and he had explained to me that one of his challenges that he had had since becoming the integrator, was that the rocks, or 90-day goals of the company that the team had come up with, were not very concise, which made them very ineffective. They were hard to measure whether they'd been completed or not. I suggested that he put some thought into what some good rocks may be for the upcoming quarter prior to the quarterly meeting, and then bring them up for discussion in the meeting. But I have to mention here that being a world-class integrator takes a little finesse. I told him how you pose these ideas to the group is in large part going to determine your success. You can't present them as the rocks that have to be used. You have to present them as ideas to be discussed, and then be quiet and let them be discussed. People are much more likely to engage and own the rocks, or any other idea for that matter, if they're involved in the creation of them. This is where asking good questions and then allowing the leadership team or your direct report to think and discuss ideas. This will allow them to be engaged in the process and fully own the path forward. So being a good listener doesn't mean not saying anything, though. Excuse me, I need to have a drink. In fact, a good listener is able to interact and ask questions to clarify and help someone to think more critically. You may have a good idea of what you would like to see happen in these types of circumstances, but in order to get them to own it, you need to, in essence, allow them to discover it themselves. Also, they may have better ideas than you, so never box people into using your idea. Leave room for them to apply the gifts and abilities that they have. If they are the right person in the right seat and using their unique ability, they will bring a new perspective that will be even better than yours alone. This is definitely an intangible to becoming a world-class integrator. Point number 3, be caring. How I would explain this is that intent matters more than technique. The idea of intent was first shown to me by James Muir, the author of The Perfect Close. He explained it to me to us in the context of sales. He said that if your intent in a sales presentation is to sell someone, and you don't truly care if they need what you're selling, they can tell, because you have what he calls commission breath. They're very unlikely to buy from you simply because they don't like you, because you don't care about them, and they can tell that. On the other hand, if you genuinely care about the other person and take a consultative approach and really help them to determine what would best help them, they're much more likely to want to buy from you, assuming that what you're selling will be helpful. I believe that it's the same in leadership. You must enter all interactions, especially hard conversations, with the best intent. You must genuinely care about the other person and want to help them win. If you do this, they will be more open to your coaching. So much of the integrator's job is just that, coaching and delegation. One of my clients who's an integrator has 340 staff. In one of our recent sessions, he told me that he had 5 pages of things to do and didn't know how he was going to get it all done. My response was, it isn't your job to get it all done. It's your job to make sure it gets done. So what on your list can someone else do? I challenged him to go through the list and identify who each thing could be delegated to, because the integrator's job is so much about delegating and managing people. They have plenty of opportunities to correct and guide people, which means that intent is really important. Not only should you show that you care about people, but you actually need to care. So I would do the work in your own heart to get in the right headspace before you have hard conversations, just to make sure that your intent is in the right place. All right, the next intangible is very closely related, and it is be empowering. So you need to be the leader that empowers, not the boss that takes advantage. This one is so closely related to being caring, but a little bit different. You will empower people because you care and you want to see them win. Empowering people can take a few different forms. Here are some examples. First one, it could be pushing them out of their comfort zone so that they're forced to grow. Sometimes the most empowering thing you can do is shoving them out of the nest so they can spread their wings and fly. That's okay to do as long as they know that you care, you genuinely believe they will win, and you're there to support and coach them along the way. Second one, it could be having that hard conversation with them about an area in which they need to grow. In my experience, often these hard conversations are turning points for people to help them to break through to the next level. Third one, it could be giving them boundaries and scorecards or setting a bar or standard that you hold them accountable to live up to. Often people need that. They need some boundaries. They need some way to measure their success. And you, as an integrator, as a leader, have an opportunity to do that for them. And the last one, it could be encouraging them to do some professional training to develop their skills, right? In order for people to be empowered, sometimes they really just need a little more training. So there are many ways that we can empower people, and your success as an integrator will in large part come due to your ability to empower people in a caring way. And the word empower actually means to give official authority or legal power. So one last question on this point, are you giving your people the authority needed to do their job? All right, the fifth intangible is be concise. When I became the integrator in a company for the first time, one of the things I realized was that no one in our company had a job description. Nothing was written down or documented. How could we possibly expect our people to do their jobs properly when we never told them concisely what their jobs actually were? Most conflict and frustration comes from unmet expectations, and most unmet expectations come from assumptions and poor communication. You simply must spell it out for people so that, firstly, they know what's expected of them, and secondly, you have something to hold them to if they don't deliver. I believe that clear is kind. The more clear and concise you can be, the better things will go, especially in the role of integrator where there's a lot going on. This also goes for delegating. Being concise is critical. There can be no gray area as to what is expected of your team member when you delegate. What are the deliverables? When is the deadline? What are the checkpoints or milestones along the way to make sure that the project is on track? In the earlier be empowering point, I said that empowering is to give official authority or legal power. A job description concisely tells people what authority and power they have. Gray areas in job descriptions either keep people from walking in their authority, which could lead to a lack of accountability on their team, or maybe they overreach on their power because it wasn't fully defined. Be concise on what authority and power they have, and the results will improve over time. The sixth intangible is be firm. You need to be caring and empowering, but you must also be firm. People will take the path of least resistance. So you have to raise the bar for them and hold them accountable. Don't let people off the hook or make excuses for them. If you do this well, people will accomplish more than you or them ever imagined possible. People need a cause to rise to, and you create that by being firm with them on what's expected. The path of least resistance needs to be meeting expectations, but this means you may have to be a bit of a pain holding people accountable until they shift their thinking and get on board. When I was integrator at a construction company, we hired someone to do data entry for us so that we could have more accurate numbers for projects on a weekly basis. I then had held accountability meetings with the project managers every week, and we looked at the numbers. If something was off or over budget, I asked questions to determine what happened and how it could be fixed or compensated for in other ways. No one had ever done this before in our company. And at first, I think they weren't sure about it, but it wasn't too long and they were much more aware of where their projects were at. And that first year in that role, we 22 times our net profit on the same revenue. I believe a lot of it was simply because of the increased accountability and me being firm with enforcing it. Not only did this make the company more profitable, but it also led to bonuses for all the staff and raises for me and my 3 project managers. All right, the last intangible, number 7, is be self-aware. I think self-awareness is one of the most important skills of a leader for multiple reasons. The definition of self-aware is having conscious knowledge of one's own character and feelings. I would add to that definition, I think it's actually just seeing things for what they are. I think sometimes we can be distracted by our feelings and by the actions of others and get sidetracked. We really need to take some time to reflect and explore what is really happening on the inside. I think this applies really well in all areas of leadership, but the biggest impact will be in your relationship with your visionary. The two of you are very different, and there are some pitfalls that you can run into if you're not self-aware. In my relationship with my my first visionary, I didn't know what was happening inside of myself when he did things that frustrated me. Then I went on to my second visionary, and I became much more aware of what was happening and why I was frustrated. Then when I read the book Rocket Fuel, I really began to understand who I was and why certain things bothered me so much. Integrators have a natural desire for order and structure. We can't not see everything that's wrong with the company, nor can we stop ourselves from thinking of better ways to do things. It's a gift and a curse. While these things that you see can be the truth, you have to be careful how you present it. Other people don't see what you see. So you have to be careful not to express your feelings too freely without thinking about how they can impact other people. People can get defensive, especially your visionary, if the problems you see were caused by them. Self-awareness and emotional intelligence are really key to becoming a world-class integrator. All right, so just to review, the 7 intangibles covered today are: 1, be a servant; 2, be a good listener; 3, be caring; 4, be empowering; 5, be concise; 6, be firm; and 7, be self-aware. So I'm going to open it up for questions and comments, but before we do that, I want to give you all a free gift for attending today. I've been working on an assessment designed to measure the unity between the visionary and the integrator in a company. I believe unity between the visionary integrator duo is the ultimate intangible to being a world-class integrator. If you don't have unity, you don't have much. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat shortly. This assessment is designed much like a premarital assessment. If you're familiar with how those work, it's sent out to the two of them. They complete it individually, and the results are compiled into a report that identifies any red flags. In the premarital context, a red flag could be something like, she wants 5 kids, he wants none. This is a problem and needs to be discussed before you pull the trigger on this thing. Similarly, the unity assessment is also looking for red flags that indicate a lack of unity. As part of this assessment, I offer a free 30-minute consultation to review the results and discuss the red flags with the VI duo. But before I open it up for questions, I also want to let you know that my next webinar will be on June 8th, the same time. The topic for that one will be Unlock the Hidden Potential of Your Second in Command. Please invite any visionaries you know that are developing a new integrator from within their organization. All right. That is it for today. I'm going to open up for questions, but I am going to stop the recording